Hi there, everyone. It's been a bit of a minute, so if you need to go and remind yourself about what happened in the last time I read Fate Prototype, you can go and do that, but we are back with some more of Fate Prototype as we move on to Volume 2. Now, thankfully, because of how Fate Prototype is kind of told, I mean, it's literally called Fragments of Sky Silver, we're going to be jumping around between different characters from what I hear, and so I think it's going to be fine, even if there was a bit of time between the parts as we piece together the previous Holy Grail War to Fate Prototype, the one that doesn't exist, the one that it's complicated. Don't you love it? Anyways, we're here. We're going to be reading Volume 2 here, right? So thank you to the fan translators as usual. We have this character here who do we know her? Rayrokan Misaya. I don't think we know much about her, if anything. I definitely can look at this character and say I don't think I know who they are. Those bunnies are adorable though, so that's good. Little different outfits there. Little sleeping clothes. Okay. And okay, so her servant looks to be Castor, who we're gonna pretend like we don't know who this is, even though we totally do, thanks Fate Grand Order. Oh my goodness, look at him. We know who this guy is. Boy, yeah, you sure are the prototype to Gil. Even going as far as having two different hairstyles, huh? Wow. Wow. You look younger here. Definitely. And Master Ray Rakana, who has Berserker. Who's Berserker in this war? I legitimately don't remember. Well, we'll see as we continue. We are on the Best Friend arc. So we're going to see that, and we have the Magician's special act at the end. So, Best Friends, Act 1. So, Fate Prototype, Fragments of Silver Side, Novel 2, Best Friend arc, Act 1. Here's the full account of 8 years ago of the person who inherited the noble name Rayrokan family. Okay. The time is 1999 AD, the end of the century, Tokyo. The second Holy Grail War had begun. So, okay, this time is... so this is talking about... if we're talking here about Tokyo 1999, that's Prototype itself we're in. Okay. In the promised land of the East, the mutual slaughter of 7 humans and 7 servants unfolds without knowledge. 7 magi who hold their own wishes and gather and manifest 7 servants, all of them vying for the right to use the Holy Grail, a holy relic which had been hidden somewhere. What's all this for? It is all for an ambition, for an oath, for an obsession. The Holy Grail exists exactly for the root of all creation, which is said to be even the very reason for Magus' existence. An omnipotent and wish-granting device. Although I've heard that it was officially recognized by the Mage Association, there is no way to tell whether it's similar in general to what the 7 masters and servants are seeking, or what their ultimate individual longings really are. The Holy Grail, which is said to have materialized in Tokyo, it is not clarified until now what its true form is. Is it really an object that secures a temporary bridge to the root? Or is there another possibility? At the very least, the master parties haven't been informed of it, nor can the Holy Church, who fills the position of an overseer, ever break their silence on it. The bunch over the clock tower don't even behave like they hold doubts on it. I cannot deny the danger of opening up a huge pitfall, but even if that is true, I'll aim for the root at least. I will freely use the great many magics that have been cultivated inside this body. I will command the starving monstrous beasts that I've placed under my control. I will rule over my magic workshop I've transformed into a garden of death. I will employ my heroic spirit who manifests as my blade. Now, as I also make this guide with the sum of my memories and pasts that I can recall as if it were yesterday, I will reach that place which I have dreamed of while piling up the corpses and the bloodlines of many magi. I must struggle on. If I cannot do that, then I can only just die. Yes, it's true. Literally. Surely my bad death will be a painful one, no? I must suffer till the end, die, and end up unsightly. If one is defeated in battle, then a master may lose their life as a result. Somehow, that's not such an easy thing for me. To die, that is. Unless I obtain the Holy Grail with these hands, it's a certainty for me. Even if I sought protection with the Overseer's approval, for example, it'd be pointless. All these things that compromise the present me can only rot, crumble, melt, and fade away. Which is why there's nowhere for me to run to. No, I never planned on running away in the least. So I waited for it. For the second coming of the Holy Grail. For the materialization of heroic spirits. For the days of massacre that will hang over me with the suffocating smell of blood. For my harsh end where I can use all of my abilities and character. For the time when a master's degree will appear on my body. So, the thing I was waiting for is the final slaughter. Okay. Okay, you know what? I said, yeah, it's all good. We all remember what to do. It's definitely been a hot enough minute that I feel like I need a reminder of the timeline. Okay, so Fate, Prototype, Fragments, right? Am I wrong in thinking that because they're talking about the Second Grail War, right? Yeah, okay. So 1991 is the first. So this is now in like the time of the second, the time of Prototype itself. Okay, just wanted to check. Let's see. On a certain day in February 1999 AD, the Reirikon main estate, Tokyo. Shining in the moonlight was an extravagant Western style house. Oh, is this the girl that becomes Rin Tosaka, basically? Is that who this is? I want to take a reminder here. Yes. Okay, this is about the girl who becomes the Proto-Rin. Got it. Understood. Okay. If one is told that it is a royal mansion, then they probably nod at it. Remarkably old among the other houses and buildings, the structure, which was filled with extravagant tastes, is adequate enough for a ruler to sit in. As a matter of fact, in spite of not having clear societal status, the master of the Western-style house has deep roots in the city and governed it, as if it were natural for them. It's too much. Let's go to... That's definitely not enough. Well, we'll see her right away. Trying to get to 135. 140. There we go. That should be good. Reirikon, which is a weird name. Something about it just looks strange. It is not the name of this mansion, but rather it is the name of the master who owns and controls the house. There in Tokyo, why is that in quotes? A city at the end of the East, which has a reputation for being the frontier in the magic world, is... Oh, that's interesting. Well, okay, but no, I was going to say, like they call it here the frontier for magic, whereas in Fate they pretty much call it backwater, but that's also not Tokyo. They're literally meant to be in a place that is a backwater town in comparison to Tokyo. Anyways, being a frontier in the magic world is a ruler who has mastered multiple magic systems and has officially obtained rulership of mankind as a leading influential person. Oh, this is a Tosaka who has succeeded. It's a fitting mansion for a kind of king to spend the night in, the man thinks as he walks through the second-floor hallway, while casually looking up at the exhaustingly high ceiling. He was a tall man. Okay, so this is a man. Dad's still around, maybe? Peeking at his thoroughly trained body even from above his clothes, he was a hero. Oh no, this is a heroic spirit probably then. From the ceiling, the man turns his eyes over towards the window. The time is around midnight. The man's keen gaze easily grasps the dark garden, which can't be sighted by ordinary people. The reason is simple. It's because he is not an ordinary person. He knows that there are several large breeds of dogs in the spacious front garden. Hunting dogs. Not just a breed of dog, but real hunting dogs that carry the means to hunt their prey in their bodies. More precisely, they are beings beyond that. Not proper living creatures, they are a type of familiar, reconstructed as instruments for annihilation to rip apart any enemy who enters the premises. Indeed, even though there isn't a sign of other people in the vicinity, the demon dogs are vigilantly sharpening their nerves. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to tell them apart, but the man recognizes the red eyes of demon dogs, which were faintly shimmering with prana. To be able to Doing that sort of activity for so many hours while in a combat-ready state to tear apart intruders within seconds is an impossible feat for ordinary animals. Talk about loyal. It's not towards the instruments. The man is expressing it towards the unmistakable presence of the dogs who would give up everything for their master. As he shrugs his shoulders, he starts walking through the hallways again. The mansion is spacious anyway. Time passed for a while until he arrives at a room that he was aiming for. Rather than intently walking through the dark hallway, it was certainly quicker to move at high speed through spiritualization, but the man had not done it. He felt like walking with his own feet tonight, and besides, if he wanted to observe the state of the dark, besides I will say some of these commas are a bit strange, and besides, he wanted to observe the state of the dogs for a bit. On the doorknob of his objective room, the man places his hand on it. After opening the heavy door, he tries to forcibly knock, as if he had realized it after the fact. Don't interrupt me. Oh, apparently it seems I've really interrupted her, the man thinks after having caught sight of his master who was sitting inside the wide room. In the pale light, he instantly grasps the entire state of the inside of the room, which was just as similarly gloomy as the hallway. Without dozing off quietly, could she possibly be in the middle of her reading? For some reason, even my pet dogs rarely disturb my reading. Coldly, his master, Misaya Reirukon, said to him, she was a dazzling woman, a woman full of wisdom, a woman who was served by dogs, and more than anything, she was a woman who profoundly understood her own self as she contends for a life exchange. Oh yeah, that's, I can zoom out a little bit here. There we go. Yeah, that's very much Lancer, right? You know, very fitting he cares about dogs, you know, because it's still him. It's still Kuhulin, right? And she has a doggo right there with her, reading a book. While still seated on the sofa, suddenly she closed the book she held in her hands and placed it close to the glass, which was already on the other side of it, as Misaya's eyes weakly glare at the man. A not very strong but not very weak glare. Despite expressing a smile on her mouth, her glare is straightforward. This woman, who imposingly glares at himself, who was even called a clan-hunting dog by her, is she really the head of her family? While being a bit joyful in his heart, the man awaits the words of the woman who is his master. As usual, does she have the same icy voice again tonight? For a little while, similar to her first words, he could predictably hear their cold echo. He's probably aware of their bewitching. However, regrettably, the temperature is too low. There is no man who'd be invigorated by this. Or is it maybe a good time for the man to shiver in fear of her? There's also the type of highly strung men who'd stay put where they are, but I didn't intend to ask you to patrol the estate land, sir. Well, you see, it's a persistent voluntary endeavor of mine. I don't really need your thanks for it. Do you even think before you speak? The temperature of her voice gets even lower. The thorns encased in her glare are as if they are changing into swords. The man Lancer accepts her glare and words with a calm composure. I probably shouldn't have said that. Shaking his fluttering hands, while also gazing at his young female master, Lancer vaguely looks over at the thing over there. In the deepest part of the room, there is something behind the sofa. There's a single hollow room there. It was a paranormal space that could warp a person's field of vision as they softly watch it. Actually, it's probably not their field of vision being warped. Even if it is with the man's, Lancer's, superhumanly keen vision, the entire distortion will not vanish. If it was a normal human, then it would completely momentarily drive their sense of balance out of whack, and they wouldn't be able to stand up properly. Because of the magic that had been performed on it, must have had a spell placed on it, so it wouldn't be all that strange to say if it could, say, make a normal person die just by looking at it. In the center of the warped room, something entwined with spiritual thread is floating in it. It is a red lance, a weapon that he himself used on many battlefields once, a noble phantasm that was given to him when he materialized as a heroic spirit. A being that must become a trump card there in the Second Holy Grail War. It, without it being in his own hand, has been sealed away to his master's own whims like this. He didn't particularly plan on voicing his objections to her. He's aware that his master's choice in challenging the Holy Grail War actually makes sense as a reason more than anything. He also values his master's resourcefulness. Likewise, she is also an excellent magus who possessed high amounts of prana, enough to possibly allow him who had materials like this to walk around every night. Furthermore, this woman is somewhere. Face off with Archer next. Since he appears to be prowling around the city center without a care in the world, you'll probably find him right away if it's you. I don't mind if you kill him if you can, or if you kill him if you can kill. If I can kill him, right? These are my exact instructions. If you heard them, then respond to them in kind. And Gebolg? Not yet. Misaya takes up her glass again. I will not unbind the seal on your noble phantasm. I will decide on the timing for you to make use of it. As her voice reaches an almost frigid degree, she suddenly stops. Whether she is restraining herself or doing it unconsciously, Lancer is unable to know that, though he was anticipating that the former would probably be better for him. A skillful woman, and is the woman herself even aware of it? Okay. As he shrugs his shoulders, Lancer unintentionally glances at the glass which the woman held. A chunk of ice is left over the glass, still keeping its shape. Which sounds probably right. Tonight grows especially cold, and the warmth of the fireplace hasn't yet entered the room. The ice will probably remain as ice, well, for the time being. Though, it won't keep till sunrise. All of it will fleetingly melt down as time passes. Such is the thing called ice. By the way, I believe I haven't heard it yet. Your response? Since it can't be helped, I'll especially say this again for you just this once. If you hear me that one time, give me your answer. All right. Please, do your best to pay serious attention from now on. I will not have you degrading me by reducing yourself to the level of a heroic spirit who is more useless than a guard dog. Heroic spirits that have been summoned by the Holy Grail are mystery themselves which have transcended reality and are made into legendary beings which have surpassed human intellect. Hard to express them as a simple fact, more than having manifested as servants who are connected to us by magic. They are no more than literal manservants in the Holy Grail War, even if they are said to be powerful heroic spirits. Their weapons, war clothing, and even their various expressions are not a mistake. But heroic spirits do have intelligence. Like a human, they probably possess wisdom and knowledge more than what they had in their lifetime. And, more than anything, they have feelings and a personality too. If you order them to do actions contrary to their will, then the possibility of them revolting is also likely. A mutual relationship is crucial between masters and servants. If you not build up a friendly relationship with them, then combat will also exert a negative influence on them. Consequently, you can compel their actions through the use of a master's degree as a last resort. However, in that moment, you will definitely break off your mutual relationship. Understand that is one fatally bad move. Depending on the relationship being built, it is possible to guide their actions as the master desires, even without using one of the strokes of your precious master degrees. Understand, recognize, that servants are weapons equipped with a free will. Trust, sympathy, obedience, supplication, reliance, longing, attachment, friend, comrade, master and servant, subordinate, parasite, belief, blind belief, love. It doesn't matter what it is. Quickly construct a suitable relationship between yourself and your servant. An extract from an old textbook. That's really interesting. If this is the First and Second Grail War, how is there a textbook with information on Grail Wars, you know? It was a quiet morning. The morning air, which usually never changes. Although there is still coldness in the air, the cooling down of midwinter is calming down somewhat, as it makes the premonition that the arrival of the next season is approaching. The next season. Sure enough, Misaya Reirukon can bring herself to think about whether she'll be able to meet it, and so on. By accepting the natural world, she could just walk by her natural self. She can just keep walking as a splendid, refined monarch. By freely exerting her wisdom and command, she could only crush them if they are something that possibly stands in her way. Even if it's the world, even if it's heroic spirits, even if it's the Holy Grail. It's a situation that she could never change whatsoever. The world is going to change its shape with her continuing to behave as herself. The reverse is unlikely. It was her answer from her experiences of these past 8 years, where she had to mysteriously keep her reign as the Rayricon family head. Rayricon. Her own family lineage. Her own name. Is it her intangible status which has been handed down for generations? Or is she on the side of control because she succeeded her family? No. No, she can say that it's different. Although the power which has been certainly been bestowed on her family name of Rayricon considerably exists, what made Misaya Rayricon, who reigns over both the magical world and global society by herself, is her choices, her own persistent abilities, and nothing but the boundaries of her own actions. It is only one of the powers which she grabbed and wielded, because her title of Rayricon family head was close at hand. She would change the world by her own nature. That should be natural, by her own natural self. I may switch out words if I know that they're clearly using the wrong one, just a heads up. It is true beauty. It is everything to her. 8:10 a.m. Tokyo's Suginami Ward, a certain private high school. By the window of a third-year classroom in the South Side School building, Misaya was quietly looking down at the unchanging scenery. She arrived at a bit of an early hour. Since she was thinking of going to school on foot this morning, she slipped past the main gate of her mansion at a back-calculated time, though she came across a Daimler AG manufactured limousine. Of course we have the brand. I was waiting to pick her up instead. Something that was arranged at the discretion of one of Nagatacho. Okay, one of Nagatacho's old men, no doubt. If she planned on going to school by car, then she would have used one of her mansion's own ones, so although in truth it was an unnecessary assistance, Misaya got into the limousine without ignoring it. If they are saying they want to make a loan that much, should she attempt to make one? Although it's true that she even thinks it's amusing what you can lend during the few minutes that it takes to go to the prefecture high school, it's not so bad to run some of the tensions of the Elder's power diagram by smoothly getting into a limo. Stagnation invites carelessness, sometimes stimulation is also necessary. Silently, she stares at the scene of students going to school. The same scenery as yesterday. No, as anything normal is the same. The crowds of innocent boys and girls who didn't know what is going on, or what is beginning here in Tokyo. These innocent, blameless, unknowing, ignorant, and pitiful lambs. Misaya cannot grasp them. Whether she's a secular ruler or a magus who controls the darkness, there are a further number of those who look down on the people called the general public, or the so-called masses, and she could immediately recall the specific names and faces of those people. It is the height of foolishness to speak of trends, but if she deliberately did speak of it, Misaya's position of self-awareness would probably enter the rare class of the boys and girls below. As they are liable to do, will have their lives stolen through the use of rudimentary sorcery that's not even a great magic. Lives that will be harvested by the small action of one heroic spirit in the Holy Grail War. Resources for exploitation and the consumption of their futures. She won't deny there are such sides, but it's never just that. While smiling together at times, bickering occasionally, or while worrying about their loved ones, their grades of the future, the boys and girls who spend their mornings like this are weak creatures, ephemeral creatures. For her, there is clear power in herself. If that's the case, then, to Misaya, there is one thing signifying the scene below. Those who she must protect. Those who she must rule over, protect, and bestow as much happiness as possible unto them. Thus, Misaya Rayricon reigns over them. There is one way. To just keep staying as her natural self. Quietly, Misaya keeps on staring at the students, while vaguely grasping at the innocents who she must protect with these hands as a whole image. And then suddenly, someone returns her gaze. She observes an individual student, which doesn't carry out usually. Half unwarily, half warily, Misaya caught notice of one girl's figure. female student who hid her clear eyes behind glasses. Her name is Ayaka Seijo. If she glances at her like this, then she's just one of the average female students, one of the blameless innocents who should be under her protections as such. However, she is different. That is a magus. Yep, there she is. Black hair, not the blonde. One of the people who knew about the existence of mysteries in the world and who possesses the power to exercise it, albeit a bit. Furthermore, more than anything, she is even a magus who participates in the Holy Grail War, same as herself, Ayaka Seijo. Her master's rank is Princess, which is the lowest of the 7 ranks. The survivor of the Seijo family, who won in advance till the end in the last Holy Grail War. Going to school quietly like this, was she overconfident from having survived the other day's raid? Or did she realize that there is no point even in shutting herself at home, which is her magic workshop? Or is she thinking about trying to use the students as a fleshy shield? Or as expected, did she have confidence in her servant's own abilities? She's quite carefree. She silently mutters as she sharpens her gaze a bit. She didn't plan on staging a fight at school during the day. More than the cover-up of mysteries, which is Magus's obligation, Misaya contemplates that she wants to avoid hurting the students who should be under her protection, within her dominion, as much as possible. Besides, now that Ayaka Seijo is oh so majestically strolling into school, the probability that she's being served by a servant who is spiritualized the same as her very own is high. Besides, she turns her gaze to the north side school building. Although she can't identify it, she is sensing something in the school building over there. The enemies inside the school isn't just limited to that girl. Briefly, she entertains herself in her own mind, then, "Oh, Miss Misaya, good morning." She turns around to a familiar voice. She had already sensed their presence since long before. Several of her female classmates. Covering herself in the mask of a girl her age, Misaya cheerfully responds unchanged as usual. She returns a good morning to they who express the morning greetings with their mouths. As opposed to with any other part of your body. That's a strange. Sometimes you see words and you're like, yeah, of course they exchange with their mouths. What do you expect? I guess you could wave hello, but... Did someone happen to see her with her friends? As they were asking for the reason why she's standing by the window, slowly she shakes her head. No, it's nothing. Friends. That's right, friends. Such a thing for herself. She didn't even have one person who she could call a friend in the proper sense. To rule over the transient masses that must be protected, to lead them, to surely bestow peace and happiness onto them for her. For this natural Misaya Reirukon. I think you mean, for this is natural for Misaya Reirukon. Stand side by side with someone, it's unnecessary, sorry. This Holy Grail War is a solitary battle. If there's a person who can be called your friend, only heroic spirits have the character for it. Though some exceptions do exist. Types of familiars are the same as servants in the substantial sense. There are also cases where they may use a magus of the same family lineage as yourself for a subordinate. If you gather attention with your candid group behavior, it's possible to counter even the likelihood of the danger of suddenly being assassinated in your sleep by assassin. Then it's also not a bad move. However, be aware, you mustn't be influenced by your own children. The safety of those who will inherit your magic circuits take precedence over everything. Magi are not individuals, so I must definitely stress the importance of the succession of your family's lineage's blood. Thus, bear in mind, you mustn't challenge the Holy Grail War while still keeping your children beside you. If there is a magus who is, perhaps, doing this, then are you a fool who doesn't realize the severity of the Holy Grail War? Or are you an absolute strong man who's convinced that he can survive even in a heroic fight? You must be one of these two. An extract from an old notebook. And then time goes back to 8 years ago. The year is 1991 AD, when the first historical Holy Grail War begins, when a battle is about to unfold now between 7 masters and 7 servants. When the ruler was still young. In those days, she didn't know about her origin or her essence. Is her origin like a ruler origin? Like, is her origin about, like, to be commanding others? I wonder. She was young, childish, and immature, the days when she was under someone's warm and gentle protection. I walked through a second-floor hallway with shining moonlight. I hate my own young body a bit, even though I'm often compared to a child who is very mature of her age for 10 years old. Hey, if anyone says that to you, they're a groomer. Get away. That's not good. Don't like those words. I know well enough that the narrowness of my own steps as I'm walking at a quick pace like this are unpleasant. I want to grow up quickly. My body, too. My mind, too. Even as a human, even as a magus, I wanted to become an adult as soon as possible. I'm a bit tired of being a child who's said to be amazing just for walking in the darkness. The gloomy hallway, which is lined up bit by just the lights of candlesticks which have been lit by magic, yes. I might describe it as creepy if I were a same-aged elementary student. As far as looking at the state of my classmates, the kids who are the same age as I are all fraidy cats. The dog with the face of a human, the slit-mouthed woman, the violet-colored mirror, the white thread, the red and blue papers, the 13 steps, the human anatomical model who walks during the night, the portrait with the moving eyes, and at the end, whether there's a girl in the school toilet. Those are all myths that I've heard of every one except the violet-colored mirror. I haven't heard of that one. All of them are childish, a gossip that's whispered between children, a scary story. Even if I could grasp a ghost story as logic, I can't actually feel it. Such things, what's so scary about them? There's nothing in the darkness unless a magus does something, so there shouldn't be no way for a phantasmal species to appear downtrodden so easily if there is a chance that a rumor was sublimated into a mystery. Rather, it'll become a target of great interest for us, magi. That's why, even as I walk alone through the gloomy hallway, I cannot feel anything. In the normal and unchanging scenery, I mustn't feel fear. Besides, the night sky is clear, and a huge moon is coming out. I can say that it's more than enough for a bright night. There's nothing to be scared of. However, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. I exhale some white breath. Casually, I gaze at the front yard through the window. At the distance and in this darkness, I can't properly see the hydrangea flowers, which I planted there with my mother. It appears there's no change whatsoever. Same old garden. Even though it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be the same as usual. Even the flower which I had planted while getting dirtied by the soil should be filled with lethal curses. However, I couldn't think of anything besides it. Magic workshop, it's death to intruders. That's obvious too. After all, the Holy Grail War has begun. You called for me, Father? I knock on the door of the living room. I think it's the first time that I've entered at such a late hour. Although it's a time where I should have already gone to bed and be sleeping as usual, I walk through the hallway like this, arrived at the living room where Father awaits me, because he told me to come to the room through a familiar. Yo, that's literally like texting your daughter to say come here. Like, can you imagine? Like, you're in the same house and you just text to say come here? That's that, but with a familiar. Since I was hesitant about going there while still in my PJs, I instantly changed my clothes after I slip out of bed. Even though we are family, we must offer every courtesy to each other. Especially so if I am to directly meet with Father. Ever since he was chosen to be a Holy Grail War participant and got his master degree, which is proof of a master, Father has been busy day and night. Since Mother and the servants moved to our Izu villa, I've been helping him somewhat too, for Father manages everything and protects the Rayricon mansion by himself. Despite fulfilling his duties as the Rayricon family head, at the same time, they are overlapping with his Holy Grail War preparations. He carries out intelligence gathering regarding the other masters, and even searches for general mobilizing servant summoning catalysts with a front and back connection. I bet Father is active without distinguishing between day and night. Saying that it's because it's night I couldn't possibly show myself in something like pajamas. Oh, Misaya? Please come in. A reply. I quickly opened the heavy door. Inside the wide room was the figure of my father. As he sits deeply down onto the sofa, he's looking at me with a gentle expression. While I'm half relieved by Father's expression still, I feel half insecure. Is the reinforcement of the workshop not necessary? Already the Holy Grail War is... Yes, the Holy Grail War. about this magical ritual of unprecedented scale and the first historical that's to be performed here in Tokyo. I already heard about some things about it from my father. It is the grand slaughter by 7 masters and servants, heroic spirits and magic, offering to the Holy Grail that bestows and consumes all the hidden secrets of the mysteries that it holds. A battle that sacrifices lives to reach the root, which is the 1,000-year-old grand ambition for us Magi. I undoubtedly believe in Father's victory. In the lands of the Far East, which is said to be a frontier in the magical world, I hear that the Reirikans are conveyed to be an exceptionally noted family to Clock Tower Magi. Even among them, Father is known to be particularly outstanding among the successive generations of family heads. But even so, an uneasiness inevitably lingers in the corner of my mind. The Holy Grail War. It is absolutely unprecedented, and even heroic spirits are treated to the level of a type of familiar. But before this unprecedented event, which will probably be deeply engraved into magical history, there should be no way for us to get absolute peace of mind. Even though I say that, for whatever reason, Father is showing a smile on his face tonight. Why? Why are you like that, Father? I tilt my neck. Father, as I am to speak, my time suddenly stops just for a moment. I saw it. I found it. There was something next to Father. Okay, it's like a big... Yeah, she's in her little dress there. Something, yeah, I can't tell. It's just a big darkness thing. Perhaps there was something which was concealing itself through magic there. Right away, I rammed my attention into my own vision. My magic circuits, my prana, my vision. As I connect everything simultaneously, I charge a formula to crush magic into my vision. An intruder? No, that shouldn't be possible. I begin to imagine a few reasons for what had changed Father's appearance. Rather than walk through the nighttime hallways, rather than gazing at the uninhabited garden, and rather than the silent moon, my imagination at this moment was the scariest thing above all else. Consciously, I stopped my thoughts midway through it. It's no good, I should have made sure of something by this point. No, besides my father. No, to be precise, standing beyond the sofa is a thin... a shadow, clad in black itself was there. I can't make it out clearly. Even though there's definitely something there, a clear image won't transmit to my brain as visual information. Who... You're a clever child indeed. Although you persisted in the basics, you tried to see through my concealment magic. There's your lineage too, but it's a great thing to diligently study and hone yourself. I bet your master's instructions are excellent too. A voice I hadn't heard before. It is terribly calm sounding, on the contrary, it's scary. I shift my gaze to my father. By the time of the Holy Grail War, I had never heard even one story where another magus receives someone as a comrade. Then what is this shadow then? Father, if this shadow is an enemy, then... My apologies. As Father says this, as he says that, Father smiles with his head bowed. Huh? What is he doing? Father, no way. For a shadow that is unknown to everyone, no good. It's hopeless. Father, it's as if you are an incompetent pupil who is begging to be taught by a great master. Father is the greatest magus in the Far East. Besides for grandfather, who had passed away much earlier, it's weird for him to be acting that way. And yet, why? How? The reinforcement of our magical workshop has already been done, Misaya. The magical workshop... No, I don't even mind if it's designated as a temple. Because he has reconstructed our mansion into a fortress with unprecedented mysteries fluttering in through the use of magnificent, skillful magic. Temple. Read him, Messiah, for he is the one who shall bring the root to us Reirikans. I don't understand the meaning of his words. Father, what are you saying? Temple? The root? Him? I had no choice but to look up at the shadow with unsightly embarrassment, and only express it as creepy. As the tall black shadow gapingly shows his 2 eye-like luminous points on his body, he's looking down at me as if peering into me. It's a pleasure to meet you, little miss, the shadow said. It was ice. His voice, it makes me think of something that's terribly cold in its clearness, which is why I think of ice. An ice demon, a ghastly thing who wears shadows. What should I do? Do I need a fire? Though I don't have much pride in my elemental conversion magic, but if it keeps me in touch with this shadow, then I shall fire at it. No, that's not it. I probably recognize Father's words. The workshop, a temple, a person who shall bring the root. Am I confusing myself? Finally, I realize that my lips are slightly trembling. The shadow approaches such a me. As Father calmly watches over me, it takes a long way around from the other side of the sofa and expressly comes over to the place where I was standing. And then, O scions of the many children who hath received my teachings, I am an ancient one who has manifested into the class of caster. Same as yourselves, I too am one of the magi who seek the root. Gently the shadow, together with your father, please with me, reaches out his hand to me. Let's be friends. Quietly, he whispered. Yeah, there we go. It's him. Well, we're not going to say who he is till we know who he is. Yet another girl is tossed around by the Holy Grail War. Yeah, a lot of little girls in this one. More than normal, for sure. Still, it is early morning. The girl didn't care at all about the whiteness of her breath, nor the air in the corridor, which had accumulated plenty of coldness during the night. She felt the warmth of the morning sun shining in through the large glass windows. She knew that the temperature would rise as time passed from here on to noon, and above all else, wasn't bothered by the cold. Already the girl, Misaya Reirukon, was recalling the events of that breakfast. What is that man's true name? Seated at the opposite end of the long table, her father uttered to the quiet Messiah's question. It is not my place to answer that. If something that warrants an answer, then you must ask the gentleman directly yourself. I understand, Father. Misaya accepted her father's words as consent. In other words, the man was one of the 7 heroic spirits who will materialize in accordance with the large-scale magic ritual known as the Holy Grail War being carried out here in Tokyo, a man who has obtained the form as a servant of we Reirukons with the rank of caster to directly face such a man. A man. Yes, she intuitively knew that he must be a man. The figure she saw for the first time last night had been magically concealed. All she could remember was an eerie shadow. She was confused. There was bewilderment, too. As she remembered correctly, she had been overwhelmed. To be overwhelmed without grasping the immediate other's existence, it was a first for Misaya. Although her life up till now was not a very long 10 years, whether it be mysteries or mages, there were many times where she had gotten herself involved with things who couldn't be called humans in the proper sense. However, Misaya had never been intimidated by them. Whenever a demon appeared in front of her due to her father's necromancy, whenever she stared off at what the magical beast starved for blood at distance close enough for its breath to touch her skin, whenever she exchanged words with a magus who underwent a year on a said visit from a European association. Okay. Misaya Reirukon had faced them with resolutely, without flinching at them. It was not a conscious action. Only until it was deemed reasonable to do so. However, last night she was confused. She couldn't instantly figure out how they should face each other. How should I comprehend that fact? Misaya had yet to obtain the answer from within herself. I will ascertain it. I will, with my own 2 eyes. While walking through the corridor, she responds to her father's words from breakfast again in her mind. A heroic spirit, a great man or hero that has surpassed human intellect, a powerful illusion which cannot be handled by a magus unless there is an exception like now, the embodiment of a formidable myth. The shadow that called itself Caster, yes, it is indeed a heroic spirit. That can no longer be doubted now. Then, what is a heroic spirit? What is that person? Is he truly the one who will bring the Holy Grail to the Reirukons? Is he a person worthy enough for Father to show respect to him in that way? Since she had permission, there's no reason for her to hesitate her conduct. Misaya proceeds dignifiedly down the corridor, while disregarding the opposition from the many barriers that gave her body a scorching sensation. She reaches the front of her room, addressed that person as a private room on the northernmost corridor of the first floor of the Reirukon mansion. It was a big red door. Usually, she doesn't walk to this area much. a section that was once used as a workshop by her grandfather. She'd heard that everything of magical worth had been moved to her father's underground workshop after he succeeded to the position of master. So Misaya knew that this area was in effect a dead zone, a group of rooms with no user in this spacious mansion, places where no one lives. After the discussion of the Holy Grail War came out, father seemed to be using the storeroom. A few months ago, she was watching a specialist antiquarian. I don't think I've ever heard that term, but it makes sense. Specialist antiquarian dealers who had carried in large numbers of carefully packed furniture. Since it was not possible to directly bring them into the underground workshop, they were placed briefly in this uninhabited area. If Misaya's guess of carrying the cargo in with familiars was correct, then the items that were not carried underground and the items with no magical worth amongst the articles bequeathed to them by her grandfather meant the old furniture must be quietly sleeping somewhere. And, while imagining to some extent of what will enter her view, Misaya gazes at the door. She didn't touch the doorknob because it was already slightly ajar. He sure is careless for not locking the door, isn't he? While lowering her evaluation of him down a grade in her mind. Leave the door open? Maybe he likes some wind. Come on. She quietly approaches the crack. Timidly, she peeks into the room. It's Misaya, right? Please, come in. Someone's voice. The sound wasn't as vague as last night. His appearance, it wasn't the elusive black shadow. Tall. His body itself hadn't changed. A slim figure. His body was the same as last night. He was standing in the middle of the room with the morning sun pouring in through a gap through the curtains, appearing to be experimenting with someone. Holding a flask containing a blue liquid in his left hand, he was trying to pour silver liquid from the test tube between his right fingers. Suddenly stopping his hands, he turns towards her. Without exercising his concealment magic already, she could see his figure even in a dimly lit room with half-closed curtains. He was a beautiful man. A beautiful person. I definitely don't think he's a woman. A man. A man wearing a long white robe. Is it because of his long glossy hair that he's the gentle air of a woman, despite the fact he is a man considering his long body? Black hair. I think it suits him well. Even though she only saw his figure, her slightly lowered appraisal of him appears to have risen slightly. It seems strange saying it, but welcome. The mansion belongs to you and your esteemed father, after all. Come now, Misaya, you'll get cold if you stand in the hallway. There's no need to be shy. Sure. She slightly nods, realizing that she was becoming stiff. She enters the room. Then Misaya was mesmerized. For beyond the door, there was a magnificent mage's room. On the wooden desk, a number of thick magic tomes and parchments were piled up. Likewise, on the wooden shelves too, brightly colored liquids were pouring into beakers and flasks. Countless test tubes were lined up. A lump of pale flesh is floating inside a water tank, connected to a brass object that appears to be some kind of mechanical device. Seemingly weird magical catalysts were here and there on the walls and in the cabinets. A mummy of something resembling a reptile, the claws, fangs, and heart of a figure that was unlikely a normal creature, an obsidian knife, golden skull, and various other objects were emitting a packed presence, along with the numerous visible magical formulas and magic circles that were scribbled on the walls, floor, and ceiling. Oh, no way. A room which was supposed to be a good place for storage at best had turned into a Wunderkammer. Wunderkammer? Alright, to Google, what the frick is a Wunderkammer? Wunderkammer. German word meaning room of wonder or cabinet of curiosities. Oh, it's just like a room just full of a bunch of stuff. Okay, never heard this word before. I thought it was just a space full of darkness and dust. It's so vivid, as if the entire room appears to be shining. It's incredible. In one night, you did all this? She speaks while still feeling it. Her admiration itself leaked out as words. The state of the room was really intriguing for the girl who had still had a young curiosity. During the Holy Grail War, Misaya couldn't leave the grounds of the Raricon mansion, meaning the workshop. Although her mother had moved to their secondary residence in Izu along with all her servants, based on her father's advice, Misaya chose to remain behind in the Suginami main residence for all her desired future studies. As a result, she mostly had to stay in her room for a while and couldn't go to school as well. Apart from that, Misaya wasn't bothered by it. She was more than satisfied with her father's explanation, where he had talked about the system and rules of the Holy Grail War to her when she had discovered some free time, although, to tell the truth, it seemed completely tedious somehow. Everything in her scenery that entered her eyes was fresh and exciting. It was the same feeling as when she toured her grandfather's and father's workshops for the first time and said it was impossible or even more than that. Her hesitation is shattered by her boiling curiosity. Is it all right if I ask you something? Of course. I'm the one who takes joy in teaching and guiding others, so let me answer your burning questions. His tone calm, his expression likewise, but at the same time, wrapped in kindness. You, too, are no less than a descendant of the many children who received my teachings like your esteemed father. I will only respond as long as you wish it. Smiling as he said that in front of her, she had already lost her patience. Opening her small mouth, Misaya thinks of a question. What kind of creature is that mummy before us? The fangs, hearts, and claws, too. The obsidian knife is a relic from which era? What sort of magic catalyst is the golden skull? I want to inquire about all the items in this room. It's full of items I've never seen before. For example, let's see, what's this? She points at the dried, reptilish corpse. Ah, that's, he responds with a smile. It's the mummy of a salamander. He said without delay. Misaya recalls her elementary school teacher. Accepting questions about the furigana of a kanji from a female classmate, it was as casual as if he were a natural teacher. A salamander is a phantasmal species, and at the same time one who rules over the elements in one theory. Even though it should be an extremely valuable item no matter if it exists, it's difficult to imagine it being stored openly like this. As he speaks to Misaya, he nods with a smile. Really, it's true. It's a phantasmal species that has already long hidden itself away even in my era, let alone the modern one. But since it remains as a relic like this, it is not unnatural for it to be an object of study and experimentation. We can expect it to have great effects if used as a catalyst for elemental magic, and it is a truly excellent catalyst for alchemy. It depends on how you use it, but we can derive an image of it during its lifetime. Is it possible to summon it? You can, but I'm using it for elemental materials. Smoothly. He speaks as if it were natural for him after all. The elemental conversion of fire is often thought to be a very simple feat of magic. However, if you master it, then one day you might definitely even reach the fire brought by the sun itself one day. The natural metaphor, but if you try to think about it, don't you think it's beautiful? Wonderful. Or don't think it's wonderful. Wonderful. Never thought about magic from that point of view. Whether it was effective or efficient, Misaya believed that magi should not hold on to dreamy emotions even if she was aware of its gain. It is not just her grandfather's and father's teachings that made it so. It was an idea derived as a very simple yet realistic answer. She never thought the word fantastic would possibly come out there. She wasn't surprised, nor should she be convinced by it. There was only... Sorry, I keep skipping words. She wasn't impressed, nor should she be convinced by it. There was only surprise. A question and answer time. That has roughly crossed over 30 minutes. And so what's in the jar over there? It's a homunculus larva. By using a special solution, I can fix its appearance at each of its growth stages. That way I can observe the minute changes within it. I believe if I know why they have generally such short lifespans, it can lead to the overcoming of their short lives. Without interrupting him again, he, with regards to Misaya's words, answered them politely, one by one. If Misaya asked, "What is it?" or "What is that?" or "Were those crystals extracted one by one out of 4 of the 5 great elements, or is the last one a fragment of ether that gave shape to the 5th formless ether?" etc., he would openly answer them without hesitation no matter what questions she threw at him. According to him, many of the items in the room seemed to have been prepared by her father for him as a caster for the servant summoning. Finally, Misaya understood what the antique delivery men had brought in. However, regarding the fragment of ether clumps, the elements, the involvement of homunculi, and the number of gems filled with powerful mana she could see, he said that he apparently created them over the course of one night. She couldn't understand it as immediately as expected. All of them would have taken a long time, perhaps years, but what could have made it possible was due to the servant's skill that her father mentioned the other day. Or was it a technique he attained within the past magic that he had acquired over his lifetime? I believe the ultimate ether leads to an ancient lost ritual. I want to obtain it. The righteous radiance of the stars that the sages of Chaldea. I did not expect a Chaldea reference. Right, this is the old Chaldea, not modern fake Chaldea, right? I want to obtain it. The righteous radiance of the stars that the sages of Chaldea reached in distant ancient times. It is the ultimate light which twinkles and fills the cosmos, and at the same time the light of this very planet as well. That is kind of interesting. Okay. Although she felt it was a little too bombastic. Nevertheless, he repeated his sincere answers enough for her to hold a favorable impression of him. Although he saw her as a young girl, he hardly talked about specific magical exercises, but Misaya believed she had attained more than she hoped for in her overview of his answers to her questions within their brief time together. It was only just he hadn't revealed his true name to her yet. Your face is saying you're dissatisfied, I see. I apologize for this. Huh? You are already a magus. If so, you would certainly be unsatisfied with my simple answers. Then let's spend about 2 hours per day for your instructions. That's... Able to gain magical knowledge unknown to her made her feel happy. But more than that, it is never desirable for a servant who should be working for her father to spend time meant for the Holy Grail War on a separate matter. So, Misaya turns around and raises her face to answer him. No, I have to politely decline. I am grateful for your offer, though, but you are... I am? There was a beautiful, arranged face there, kind and gentle, a figure that is almost like a magus and even feels young. She even wondered what was that creepiness from last night. He with the long black hair, the being that calls himself Castor. True, she did come to confirm whether he was a heroic spirit worthy enough for her father. From last night to this morning, she was at a loss about this and that almost without sleeping. A heroic spirit so easy to get along with. Already her evaluation of him had risen by several levels. It seemed unlikely that it would be stopped now. While accepting his gaze and without averting hers, Misaya opens her lips after thinking a little. You are my father's servant. I think you should use your time and power for my father for the Holy Grail War. You are a wise child, Misaya. He nods deeply. Standing up from the chair he was sitting on, he bends his body until the position of his gaze is on the same level of Misaya. While naturally getting into a kneeling stance, he said, You're right. It's my bad habit, you see. No matter the place I'm in, I convey my wisdom to someone and get preoccupied in teaching them. I was summoned as a caster servant, not what I once was, which is why I will not be misguided in my duty, and shall spend all my efforts for your father and his ambition. His sincere gaze was staring straight at Misaya. It was different from last night. Unlike the time when he appeared as an eerie shadow that reminded her of cold, transparent ice, Misaya couldn't bring herself to think as if there was one aspect of his personality that was the same as herself in there. And yet, why is it? She cannot find any confusion or bewilderment anywhere inside herself now. But at this time, she felt she was being pressured by him. Misaya, you're a wise child, a lovely child. It appears I can reflect on my own existence again, thanks to you. I only said what is to be expected of you. Without averting her gaze, she directly accepts it and responds. Then, he smiled again. Please, let me show you my gratitude somehow, Misaya. No, that's... Already she had devoted her valuable time for the sake of her own curiosity. Although Misaya had mentioned what she honestly thought, I will not accept any more than this. That doesn't settle my feelings. Clearly, she had been rebuffed by him. Therefore, let me give you this. I knew it'd be this because this is something that we see him use in FGO. When there was a dagger in his hand, where did he take it out from? Misaya naturally knew that many mages in the modern era obtain it once and are given to it as proof of becoming full-fledged practitioners, a mystic code that is an amplification function when exercising magic and a type of staff used for magic rituals. Above all, this shape is famous. It can be said that it is an especially famous sword among mages. An Azoth sword. Muttering, she mutters the name. It seems you know about it. How about its origin? I know it. It was created by Van Hohenheim, an alchemist and magus whose name remains in open history as Paracel. She looks at him and speaks, and suddenly stops her speech. The beautiful man put his finger against his own lips and made a shh gesture. Flustered, Misaya covers her mouth with open hands. Could it be? No way. Could this person be the creator and owner of this sword in the inherent sense? It's a secret, he said to her in a quiet voice, with his mouth close to her ears as if they were having secret talk. Naturally, well, her father knew it too. Misaya nods over and over and tells him with a gesture that she will not say it nor tell anyone. Each time she nodded, she felt an exhilaration welling in her heart. Exhilaration, excitement, how could she say it more precisely? This thing that she clearly could feel so powerfully within her. Surprise. No. Moved. No. Delight. No. This is pride. He had confidence in the iron walls of the workshop, which was the fortress of mysteries he put together, and there was clearly a side of him that thought that he had no problem telling it to Misaya, who was within it. Since her father brought up a metaphor of it being an ancient temple, not a workshop built by mages, still, even so, he told her his real name as a fact. In other words, none other than an assessment that she was totally worthy of trusting his fate to her. This person really trusts me. Looking up at him with a gentle smile, she directly reacts to his gaze. She regrips the dagger she held, the sword of Paracelsus. Even though she should have exchanged one when they met last night, even so, for the first time, she had the delusion of properly shaking hands with him. Okay, is this going to be... Yeah. I think that's a good... This is a good place to stop, I feel. Yeah, for some reason there's no chapter names, which is very strange, and a very strange thing to see in this one here. But I think for now, this is a good moment for us to call it. We've very much read, I like to do an hour at a time, roughly. We met the characters, we sort of see who they are, and we'll continue with some more next time, guys. So, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you then for some more. Let's read Fate Prototype, Fragments of Sky Silver. We'll see you then. Ciao. Yo.